Yo, I'm just so upset, man. Like, why is the game like this, man? Why is Survivor like this? Two black players just went home tonight, and I'm just like so irritated. First the ladies, and now the black players. All the black players are basically going. I got you. I got you. This will not be that. This will not be that. The game is called Survivor, so you have to know as a black player that you're outnumbered. The game is called Survivor. You got to know that going in. If it was called politically correct, that would have been my intro. But it's called Survivor, and you better know how to survive, especially if you're outnumbered. Here's the real intro. Welcome, folks. As you know, I was banned from YouTube because I'm a rebel and I am too boisterous and I'm too outside of the box. I'm too much of an outside of the box thinker. And these things got me banned. So I was not able to report on episode 9. Now, a part of me was going to allow that to just go by and just say, hey, I'll skip an episode. But that is not fair to the amazing people that continue to invest in my channel with their views and likes and things of that nature, their subscriptions. So I will not leave you hanging like that. We will have episode 9 or the recap and discussion of episode 9 tonight. And certainly, I don't like it. I don't like it this way. I wanted to make it. I wanted to make sure it was live, but don't have that luxury. Nevertheless, I got some stuff to talk about, and this is the day before the new episode airs tomorrow. If you're keeping track of that sort of thing, this episode is brought to you by the Really Hood Podcast. Go check it out and leave a 5-star like. Thank you. All right, so this episode, well, first off, let's start off with the question that will guide this particular discussion, and it is, who is the scariest player left in the game? Who are you? If you were in the game of Survivor, who would you fear? And we're talking about a very healthy fear. We're not talking about being afraid for your life, but in terms of a healthy fear, in terms of a competitive fear, who would you be afraid of right now in the game? Sound off in the comment section, and at the end of this episode, I will let you know who I believe. I will let you know my answer. Okay. Anyway, this episode starts off with Sammy. He shows a desire to vote big threats out. Sammy is a very dynamic player. Let's just get this part out the way. My two picks for this season. Number one is Owen. Number two is Sammy. Sammy is a player. I just like his demeanor. I'm surprised that Sammy's demeanor has not gotten him in trouble yet. But he continues to play the game. He continues to be around. And what can I say? You know, I like the kid. He just has a lot of I would say aggression and energy and pizzazz. And I'm just, like I said, surprised it hasn't really gotten him in trouble yet. Anyway, Owen was left out of the vote again and is upset with James. Gabler told Owen before tribal council. Who knew that happened? Who knew that Gabler had a discussion with Owen to that effect or of that caliber? I didn't know about it. I'm not sure that discussion made the edit unless I was just like daydreaming when it happened. I don't remember it. But do you think it was fair? We have to have this discussion. Do you think it was fair that Owen was upset only with James? And we must also throw in the fact that Owen sent votes James's way once or twice. Okay. And at what point do you say, hey, enough is enough? Owen, you voted for James. How much how much respect, how much information should you expect at this particular point? How did you feel about the Owen and James dynamic, which pretty much ran this entire episode? Owen wants James out. Is that a surprise? That was given to us as the viewers very early on in this episode. James didn't include Owen on the move due to votes his way. As we know, we were able to confirm at least one time in which Owen voted for James. James thinks or thought that Owen voted his way twice. Again, what do you think about that dynamic? If someone votes for you in a game called Survivor, where if you don't have, I should say, fortune on your side, you could be eliminated from the game forever unless you get called back to play. In a game that is so definite, when someone sends a vote your way, that is a serious thing. At what point do we say, Owen, your expectations are just a little broad here? Or is Owen completely right in this situation in which, hey, I did do that, but the context has changed? And, you know, as Owen, I'm sure he's saying, I deserve to know more information about what was going on in this vote. And we saw that James tried to clarify it just a bit and saying, hey, I told you what I needed you to know in order for you to do what we needed you to do, and you did that. And doing so earned our trust. So again, what part of that dynamic or spectrum do you fall on? But then we transition to the challenge. And what about this challenge? Did you think it was a good challenge, a bad challenge? I'll tell you, just looking at this monstrosity was pretty epic. I mean, it looked very simple. However, the contraption which holds the ball just seemed to, it was just a different type of challenge. And I thought that it would be one of those endurance challenges where you have to hold something or whatever, but there was a slight twist to it. I would even dare say that this competition was a little broken. I mean, maybe that's not popular to say, but it just didn't seem like skill mattered. It felt like if you had the luck of the draw, or it felt like if you were able to get the right spacing or get in the right slot, it just seemed like this game. I wasn't a big fan of it in terms of a competitive standpoint, but I was impressed with the look of it. I will say that. Gabler encourages the big boys, and then Carla famously says, "What about the big girls?" So, as you know, Carla is incredibly impressive. This entire episode, Survivor dedicated this episode to her quote, in which Carla says, "What about the big girls?" after Gabler basically encourages the guys only. All right, but then in the weirdest way possible, Carla wins the blue side of this double immunity challenge. What did you think about the double immunity challenge? I thought that this was a really cool dynamic. I like this concept. And I do think it is a concept that Jeff and Survivor should go forward with and continue to use in the future, because it's just added an extra layer of competitiveness that I really enjoy. All right. But anyway, Cody, I should say, Carla wins on the blue side and comes second overall. And what about that win? I mean, Carla has stitches in her hand, and this competition revolved around holding something. How impressive was Carla? All right. But then we go over to the red side. And what about that epic battle between Ryan and Cody? I mean, am I the only one who thought that Cody was outgunned here? I thought that Cody had no shot, no chance whatsoever to win. But Cody once again pulls it out, and it goes back to that question I asked earlier: who is the strongest player in the game currently? Cody is a threat. He's a factor, and I think he's certainly someone who deserves to be in the conversation for the scariest players in the game. But anyway, Ryan suggests Cassidy for elimination. Cody and Cassidy suggest Ryan on the blue side. So we have, after the competition concludes, we go back to the beaches in which both tribes are separated, and we get to see the dynamics play out between the players and trying to jockey for position. And as I stated, Ryan suggests Cassidy, and I really felt for Ryan in this episode because he doesn't have a strategic muscle in his body. All right. At one point, Ryan suggests that that Cody get voted out, and obviously that was impossible because Cody won immunity. So it just showed that he just wasn't really in the game mentally. More like a physical specimen than anything. So, what did you think about that entire dynamic and play out? On the red side, it appeared to me, at least initially, that Owen was on the outs, and a lot of the conversation facilitated that thought until we start to see more take place. Okay, but anyway, Owen got really upset with James over, potentially being voted out. It looks like Owen was at the water well, and James comes by, and he just wants to have a conversation with Owen and say, "Hey, what do you think?" And once Owen asks James about what he thought, we see that James is kind of like playing like, "Hey, I don't really know." I thought that was a bad move on James's part because Owen is not a bad player. He's not stupid. I mean, if you're reading each player, you should know how to address and what each player is capable of. To me, Owen, at least on the exterior, just comes across as slightly intelligent. Why? Because he's silent. I always look at quiet people as the more intelligent people. Maybe that's my own bias, but that's just how I am. That's how I perceive. If someone's quiet, I know from being a quiet person myself that that person is not quiet internally. So he goes and tries to play this traditional survivor game with Owen and saying, "Hey, I don't really know." Like, come on, James, you've been in the thick of every conversation, in the thick of every move. You mean to tell me you don't know anything about what's going on next? And he didn't calculate that correctly, in my personal opinion. But Owen gets visibly upset. And I would also go a little further and say I did not like Owen's response. I thought Owen was very childlike this episode, even though he is my favorite to win. I still thought that he handled things a little childlike. But then again, who am I to say that, given that Owen, as you may or may not know, ended up on the right side of things tonight? But anyway, Owen leaves after James's well, I should say at some point Owen and James go back to the rest of the tribe, and James infamously has his hands up as if he's in some type of trouble as Owen trails him, and they're having this argument back and forth. But we do see Owen leave after James asks the amazing question, which is, "Did you vote for me?" Okay, at that particular point, once James asks Owen, "Did you vote for me?" Owen says, "Yeah, I did vote for you." And at that particular point, if I could take a freeze frame and say, "Hey, Owen, that's why he didn't tell you anything." But I didn't have that opportunity. But anyway, Owen gets visibly upset and walks off following that question. But anyway, Cody approaches Gabler because he's a free agent. This was a really cool dynamic in this episode. What did you think about the whole concept of free agents and those players who are under the radar, those players who are being underutilized? What do you think about, this whole concept, this new revolutionary concept of free agents? Now, it's not totally new, but I would argue that this is one of the first times I've heard that particular phrase being used in Survivor. So that was rather interesting for myself. And I love the dynamic between Cody and Gabler. I like the idea that those two will work together. They have this really bravado type of, this manly type of, exterior. And I thought that might just come out. That might be a great duo, if I could say that. And I know about Jesse, but still, I like the Cody Gabler duo a little bit more than the trio with Jesse. But anyway, Noel plans to blindside James. And this was the biggest surprise of this episode because let me tell you, I just didn't see it coming. I didn't see Noel coming up with this plan. And yeah, it threw me completely off. And then we see Sammy, who had reservations because I find out that Sammy and Carla have a much closer bond than I initially thought. He tries to pitch the idea to Carla. And, look, I heard a lot of talk this episode about James being the godfather. I'm not sure if I bought that. I never thought that James was the godfather, never even got those type of vibes or energies. I consider Carla the godmother. I didn't see James as being this this all this very strategic mind that's calling all the shots. I didn't see that. Maybe you did, but I didn't. And I for the most part see that Carla is more of that. This more so than James. I see Carla as the godmother. She reminds me of Griselda Blanco or something like. You know what I'm talking about. That's who she reminds me of. And she doesn't say much. She doesn't get her hands dirty. She doesn't argue with people. She just kind of looks at people and just kind of like, and everybody follows suits without really knowing they're following suit, right? That's kind of how I perceive things. But Noel comes up with the plan, and Sammy goes to the godmother to ensure that this was a plan that everyone, like in the mafia, you can't just take somebody out without going through the proper due process and making sure that everybody is on board, because in doing so, you can become a target yourself. So it was really cool to see that. Carla looks like the godmother doing tribal council. So I took note of that, and I just kind of went above my notes or ahead of my notes. But as Carla is sitting at tribal council, how beautiful, right? She has the necklace on, she has her glasses on, her shades, her hair is curly. She looks like Griselda, like a straight godmother, like, hey, the queen of the South. I got those vibes tonight. And as she's sitting behind, who is it? Owen and James, who are bickering back and forth. Sammy is looking to her for approval. And I'm just waiting for Carla to just point her finger at one of their backs and just squeeze. She didn't do it, but I was just like, please, Carla, do it. But anyway, Noel uses the still a vote, and this was a great move by Noel. I think she's also in the conversation for the scariest player. I was one who thought that the whole handicap might be something that could either work in her favor or against. I believe it's working in her favor because a lot of people are not looking her way. I think she's one of the biggest threats in the game. Me personally, not only does she have the handicap, but she is also a fierce competitor, and she was that before the handicap. So that heart, that fierce and strong and competitive heart, is still there, and it's driving everything. So it's just really interesting to me. But she uses the still a vote on Owen, and I would imagine that move has to start to ring a couple bells in everybody's brain. Like, wait a minute. So Noel just pulled out this incredible move. She uses the still a vote on Owen, who's okay with it, and then cast 2 votes against James. How intelligent was that? Now, I'm not the brightest person in the world, but I will say I was impressed. I was just like, wow, I would have probably not thought of that. And Noelle did. Okay, so that makes her a threat in a different way. Not only is she a threat from a competitive and physical standpoint, but she's also a strategic threat, which for me was just like, listen, Noelle is a freak of nature at this point. But anyway, she cast 2 votes for James, and James gets eliminated. Anybody else surprised by this? I didn't see James going home tonight. Now, I will say again, I'm a way behind everyone else, but I stayed off the internet. I didn't look up Survivor, and I didn't do a lot of things Survivor related. So I didn't know what was going on or what was going to happen before it happened. So to see James go home was very surprising. Were you upset with James going home? Were you happy that he went home? I'm somewhere in the middle because I like James kind of, but I'll tell you what I didn't like: his voice. Um, Anybody else notice like it sounded as if he was talking through a fan anytime he was at tribal council. I don't know how to replicate it, but I can't replicate it, but it was incredibly annoying. So I'm glad that's gone. But I hate to see that he met his demise so early. And in fact, I'll even go as far as to say I hate to see that he was the last black player eliminated because I was kind of rooting for that. And I want to take a moment to address this. I had a guy, I don't know his name, last week say, "Hey man, I was liking your podcast. This is not a podcast. That's the first thing. I was liking your podcast until you start talking about race. Let me explain something to you, sir. I'm a grown man. I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. Okay? If I want to talk about race, I will. If you don't like it, change the channel." Anyway, so I was rooting for him on that aspect, just like everyone is rooting for their race. I mean, am I the only one doing that? Come on. So I hated to see him go, but again, I would argue that he got too comfortable and he didn't, necessarily hedge his bets. He didn't make alliances with the other side. He seemed to be really close to the godmother Carla, and that was, his undoing, in my personal opinion. But anyway, it was cool to see that Jesse freaks out visibly after seeing James voted out. And can we just talk about James's exit? Were you a little surprised with the fact that he took this incredibly personal? The minute that Jeff reads all of his votes and we find out that James is eliminated, James, I knew the look that I saw from James. James gave me a look. I'm like, I know that look. I know that look. That's the look I would give. When someone's backstabbed, and oh yeah, I knew that look. I'm like, hey, James, calm down. James was really upset. So what do you think about his exit? Was it too aggressive? Was he? And it's like I said, this game is so it's Survivor, and he'll probably never get this opportunity again. So when you get voted out this game, I'm sure it really, really sucks, right? But that happens. But then Ryan, or I should say the Red Tribe, comes up, and Ryan says he has a 30-pound bag of clamshells in his bag. Look, again, if we have to rate these players, if this was a video game and you get to pick a player of the players left, you know what you get when you pick Ryan. You're going to get a guy who's a physical specimen who couldn't be Cody for whatever reason, a physical specimen, and perhaps it was the way this game was designed. I mean, it didn't make sense. All right. It's like, even if you held it, the ball rolled. I didn't like it. Okay. I didn't like it, Jeff. But anyway, this strategy was not the proper strategy. You're already a provider. This is post-merge. That strategy and saying, hey, I have a 30-pound bag of clamshells, and if you vote me out, I'm taking it with me, that would have worked pre-merge. Post-merge, you're only going to agitate and irritate people. So again, you know what you get with Ryan. You're going to get a physical specimen with the strategic acumen of a rating of 0. All right, you know what? I'll even give him a 2. I'll show a little grace in Ryan's regard. You'll get a 2 out of 10 in regards to his strategy or his strategic acumen. He just doesn't have it. But we saw that. But yeah, pretty obviously that didn't work. We knew that it was between Ryan and Cassidy, and Ryan bit the bullet tonight. Look, yeah, so man, I'm surprised. I'll say that. Look, on the blue side, I thought Owen was out of there. On the red side, I thought Cassidy was out of there. But what do you know? James and Ryan, double elimination, both gone. There you have it. But one thing I'm very excited about where the game goes from here, because when I looked at the previews for tomorrow's episode, what came across to me is that this is going to be, look, if you look at the players still left in the game, you have absolute monsters left in the game. There's no more hiding behind race, no more hiding behind gender. Now is when the real game starts. And this is one of my favorite parts of the game. Once all the political stuff is voted out, once all that is gone and the players remaining are just like good players, it's no longer this, that, or, I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to offend, but I'll say this. Now the game starts. Now we get to see people's true colors. And I'll have to answer my own question of the players left in the game. Who is the scariest player in the game left? Look, I don't know all the players, but let me try my best. Cassidy. I'm not afraid of Cassidy. To me, I get what I get. Cassidy, she'll go under the radar, couldn't make the final three. But no, I'm not afraid of Cassidy whatsoever. To me, she's at the mercies of what the other people do. Gabler is pretty scary, but I think he's kind of like a Ryan for me. He does what he does very well. But when it comes to strategy, he's very low on the spectrum. I would probably give him a 3 or 4. So I wouldn't say Gabler is the scariest player left in the game. Scary, but not the scariest. You got Noelle. Noelle is a dual threat. She also has a handicap that people are clearly not targeting right now. To me, Noelle would have been gone a long time ago because I would recognize she has the story. She has everything going for her. And if she made it to final 3, who is not picking Noelle? Noelle is literally the biggest threat in the game because of her story. And let me tell you, she doesn't only have the story, she also has moves in the game to back that story up. To me, Noelle is definitely the biggest threat. But is she the scariest to me? No. She's the biggest threat, though. But I wouldn't be afraid of Noelle. I feel like the person who I think is the scariest eventually will be the reason Noelle leaves, if she doesn't make it to final 3. So Noelle, I would say maybe second or third place in terms of the scariest players in the game. This is my opinion. Make yours, but that's not what I think. Cody. Cody is a brute. He's a manly man. He's strong. He even can hold his own in the strategic category. But would I say he was the scariest player in the game? He definitely comes across as scary. He's pretty intimidating. But I don't know if I would say he's the scariest in the game. Not me. I wouldn't say that. But I absolutely admire his gameplay to this point. Sammy is very young, very immature, very aggressive, very hot-headed. I'm not sure he deserves the title of scariest player in the game. I think he is really, really intelligent, more intelligent than most people might give him credit for. But I'm not sure he's the scariest player in the game. This is my personal opinion. Then you have Owen. Owen is absolutely intelligent. In terms of strategy, I would give him really high marks. The way that he was able to twist this entire week and flip it on to James, that tells you something. But he's very weak physically. He doesn't have any jury. Or wait, did he win? I think he won maybe one immunity, possibly. I forget. But from a competition standpoint, I don't see that Owen is striking fear in anyone's heart. I couldn't give it to him. Then you have Jesse. Jesse is a little bit of a he's one of the best players in the game. He's very well rounded. Physically, that's probably his weak point. But his strategy is unheard of. He is so strategic. I think he's so strategic that it makes up for the fact that he's so weak physically. In fact, out of 10, I'm giving Jesse like a 11. All right. And that extra point, put it in the physicality category to boost that. It's like this guy is insane in terms of strategy. But let's be clear. Let's be very clear. The player who I deem to be the scariest player in the game, bar none, is Carla. All right. Physically, just doesn't have it. However, did you not see what just happened tonight? I think that shows she's not where I thought she was physically. Physically, I have to give her a 6 out of 10 because she showed that last week. I keep saying tonight because I'm like in the future, in the past, Back to the Future, whatever. All right. But strategically, she's like a 13. Okay. And again, those extra 3 points, go ahead and just throw it in any category you like because it only helps. Carla is so well-rounded. She's very strong for this game. And even though my picks are Owen and Sammy, I have to tell you, she is very scary. She's very scary to watch play. If there's anybody who can take out the Noelles or the Owens, it will be Carla. And I think she made a mistake tonight. And I mean, why would you vote James out? Why would you even entertain that? If you're the godmother, you don't lose a number. So maybe on the strategic side, she took a bump tonight. But did you not see how Sammy was catering to Carla's desires. That tells you just how strong Carla is. But that's just my personal opinion. What's up, my main man T? What's up, bro? Hey, my man T is in the building. Look, when T comes into the house, you already know I gotta stop every single time. If you don't know who T is, Tim is one of my good friends on YouTube. He makes shirts. He's a Renaissance man, and I would argue he's like my doppelganger. Hey, all right. The European, like we're kind of like the same. I'm like the African American version. He's like the Caucasian American. It's like we're like the same person. Go to his channel and tell me you don't get Rick Down vibes. I dare you. But anyway, what's up, T? Hey T, I just decided to do this episode because last week I was banned. So I'm like, I felt like I did a disservice to the people who invest their time and energies into the channel. So I just decided to do it today. But anyway, look, I think that Carla is by far the scariest player in the game. Hey, T, hey, look, I think right about now is where you should jump in. If you want that big brother type of atmosphere, I think in the final 8, final 7, that's about where that big brother energy comes from. Look, I would say when it's 16 players in the game, 14, whatever, Survivor can be a drag, but I think right now is about where that big brother energy comes from. Look, I would say when it's 16 players in the game, 14, whatever, Survivor can be a drag, but I think right now is about where it picks up. So if you're someone who is a fan of Big Brother, right now Survivor is starting to get pretty exciting, and I can tell because I'm more excited about it. But we'll see. Tomorrow will decide or help me decide what I rank this or what I rate this season. Right now it's pretty low. I didn't like this season to this point, but now you got the strongest players left in the game, and this is where you separate the men from the boys and the girls from the women. This is where it happens at, ladies and gentlemen, right here. But anyway, that's all I got for tonight. I really do apologize for being banned. If I can do that, if that makes sense at all. And certainly apologize for not doing this episode sooner, but you know what it is. I can only do what I can. And tomorrow around 9:40, 9:45, I'll be ready to recap episode 10. So be there or be square. Thank you for tuning in with your main man, Rick the Dawn, and I'll see you soon. Hey, T, stay up, bro. Happy Thanksgiving, too. Peace.